Well, hello, everyone. My name is David Stevens, also known as Laser Dave, and today we have another webinar set up for you with IKONICS Imaging. This webinar is going to cover a few more of the applications that we didn't cover in our first webinar, and so if you want to stay tuned, we'll definitely go through and answer some additional questions and really cover some fun new stuff that we have found using the Blazer Orange laser mask and IKONICS digital imaging sand carving technology. If you have any questions during the seminar, please go ahead and post them, and then myself and Darin Jones from IKONICS Imaging will answer those questions at the end of the webinar, and we'll go through them and hopefully answer all the questions that you may have in this combination of technologies. So let's move forward here and get going on this webinar. Again, if you have any questions whatsoever, let us know, and we'll definitely spend the time at the end of this webinar to answer those questions. So moving forward here today, we're going to be covering a little bit on laser technology, working with the Blazer Orange laser mask. This is a wonderful mask that works extremely well with laser technology. It engraves, it cuts, it marks, it stretches, and then of course we're able to take this mask and then take it to a sand carving technology with IKONICS Imaging and carve it into the glass. So it's a great tool that allows the combination or collaborative technologies to work together. So I'm going to walk through the process flow on how that works. And then we're going to do some new or different applications that we did not cover in our first webinar, which include processing cylindrical rotary type items. And then we're going to go through the halftone processing in basically the method of creating halftoning or photographic quality images with depth using the Blazer mask with the lasers. And then the third technique I'm going to cover today is cutting and weeding process for much larger areas, which are a much faster method. And then Darin Jones and myself will move forward with a Q&A session, and we can answer all the questions that you have during this course. This course does use QR codes. If you're not familiar with QR codes, all you have to do is just open up your camera on your mobile device or phone, point it at the QR code, and don't take a photo. A link will then show up on that phone. Select that link to be directed to locations towards websites, locations of where to buy products and materials, videos, etc., stuff like that. So if you're not familiar with this process, we will typically also provide links in the future videos, but QR codes make it quick and easy to access that. So keep your phones handy, or you can re-watch this at any time at a later date once it's posted online. And then, of course, you can scan these codes and get access to these links at that later date. Trotec is a very social company. We will be posting this webinar as well as many of our other different links, as well as tips, tricks, and techniques and stuff like that on all of our social media platforms. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, or Twitter, here are some link QR codes you can scan and download so that you can be kept up to date with this, the newest, latest, greatest techniques, tricks, products, and materials and applications. If you missed the first webinar that IKONICS and myself, and Trotec Laser, myself and Darin did about a month and a half ago, here is a QR code. You can scan that and watch that original webinar. That webinar kind of goes through the basics of working with the Blazer Orange laser mask. Myself and Darin Jones, aka Dr. Fine Grit, we really kind of explain the process of working with laser technology, Blazer Orange, and IKONICS sand carving technology. So let's go ahead and get started talking a little bit about laser technology if this is your first experience with that. Lasers provide a quick, easy solution for sand carving masks. It provides fewer steps to make the masks versus other processes. No weeding is needed in most of it unless that process is actually faster, which today we're going to show both processes. Speed, some glass can be batch process, which means you can do flat panels of glass, place it on the field of the laser system, and have the ability to process the sand carving mask at an incredible speed, removing all the excess area that's going to be sand carved, because lasers have an inability to actually produce depth and dimension into glass and stone and hardened materials, where sand carving technology is uniquely qualified for producing depth into these hard materials such as glass and stone. So the combination of both technologies to create the masks and the detail using the laser technology combined with the sand carving technology really do provide a complementative technologies and allow you to do processes and techniques that really can't be done in any other method. Lasers can, of course, also cut, mark, and engrave thousands of other materials, and so it's just a very diverse product for this as well as many other applications. Blazer Orange Laser Mask is a tool that is used. It's a thin film that is placed over the surface of the mask, which combines the convenience of your laser engraving with the quality of sand carving to create beautifully etched objects. IKONICS Imaging Blazer Orange Laser Mask is a sandblastable laser mask designed to create stencils and high-end corporate promotional products, giftwares, and industries. Here's a QR code link if you're interested in looking at this material or purchasing it for your laser system, for adding it to your repertoire if you're looking to add sand carving to your processes. So basically the process is this. You take the glass or hardened material, you add the sand carved Blazer Orange Laser Mask, plus the laser engraving, plus the sand carver, and then you get an awesome result. This is a combination of technologies that truly add a leg up in the industry if you have both of these technologies working in tandem to produce products, applications, materials, and just effects that can't be done any other way. And that's what this course is all about, really showing or showcasing the benefits of utilizing both technologies in tandem to create effects or applications or looks that are difficult to achieve in any other methods. So the first project that we're going to go through today is processing cylindrical objects. The laser, of course, has the ability to not only engrave, cut, and mark onto flat materials and surfaces. We can apply what's called a rotary fixture. And this fixture can be placed into any one of the laser systems that we manufacture, and it will rotate 360 degrees around an object. And materials like glasses and mugs and cups and baseball bats are great if you're engraving into them. But if you want that depth and texture or effects into these hardened materials like ceramic, glass, stone, but the lasers can produce the depth and the detail into it, but you can't get the depth. So the combination of working with the Blazer Orange Laser Mask combined with the rotary and the laser system can produce the detail, and then we'll take it to the next step with this IKONICS sand carving technology, and that will then, of course, apply the depth into it. So I'm going to walk through the process of applying the mask, place it into the laser, into the rotary attachment, focusing and engraving the files onto a mug and a glass, and then we're going to move forward to Darin Jones, Dr. Fine Grit, and he's going to continue it on and show us the sand carving process. So here is a traditional mug. It's just a standard off-the-shelf ceramic mug. And so the process to add it is similar to the other one if you saw the first video. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of the Blazer Orange Laser Mask, and we're going to apply it to the mug. You want to keep it nice and consistent. IKONICS Imaging has a neat little fixture that they actually sell for doing this that kind of holds the mugs or cylindrical items onto it so that you get a nice, flat, consistent, tight application of the Blazer Orange Laser Mask onto the surface of the radius. Once it is applied and most of the air bubbles have been removed, you're going to remove the film that's on the outside, and now it's ready for the laser system. Laser system will be then a rotary will be added to the laser, and then we're going to go ahead and place the mug, in this case, into the laser. And we're going to orient the handle specifically where we want the graphic to be marked with, use the red dot pointer to position that graphic, and then start engraving it. Power settings don't take too much power here because all we're doing is lightly etching through the mask, the Blazer Orange laser mask in this case. And it's producing just enough effect. So the ceramic can't really be marked with the laser effectively. And so we're just kiss engraving through the mask into that kind of ceramic coating in the back with a little bit of etching from the laser into the actual mask or into the actual glaze in this case. So now, in order to produce contrast and definition into that, that's where the sand carving technology happens. And we're going to skip to IKONICS here in a moment, and then we're going to show that ability on this one as well. I'm going to show you also on the rotary, if you don't have a mug and you're just doing a glass, it's the same process. The difference is because it is a radius all the way around, the process is the same. On a standard glass, apply the application or the masking tape to the surface the same way we did with the mug. The benefit on something like a glass in this case is that we don't have the handle to deal with. And so it's not that, it's actually a little bit easier because we're not trying to compensate for that specific location. But again, same process as the mug. We're wrapping the Blazer Orange laser mask around the actual glass. And then we want to peel the film off of the surface of the glass. And then we're going to take it again, same process as the mug, place it into the rotary, and we're going to go ahead and engrave through it. Now, glass, we can produce a subtle amount of depth into glass with lasers. It's more of a frosted effect. But again, if you want that depth and really real definition into the surface, this combination of working with a rotary and laser and lightly etching through the mask in this case, and even a little bit into the glass itself, would not produce any depth. And so combining this technology or this process with the sand carving technology is going to give us kind of that best of both worlds. Some people like to use this mask for just glass because it kind of stabilizes the edges and stuff, and then it would just be peeled off and left as is. But now we're going to go ahead and take these two projects, both on the rotary, and we're going to move forward here to Dr. Fine Grit himself, Darin Jones, from IKONICS Imaging, and he's going to take these two projects and take them the next step and sand carve them for to show you the final results. So Darin, if you want to take over here and show this, we'll be happy to have you going. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me once again, Laser Dave. It's a pleasure working with you as well as everyone out there. All of you are laser pros and sand carving artists, and we're gonna, like Dave mentioned, cover how we can implement both processes to give you an awesome effect. All right, so I'm Dr. Fine Grit. That's the grit I use for all of my projects, and we're going to do a little video, like Dave mentioned, on the next part of the process, which is, I feel, it's the best. It's the sand carving, and that's the fireworks. It's the best effect. So here's what we're going to do is we're using our Crystal Blast Elite machine with 180 silicon carbide in the machine. And basically all you do is shoot right at the object. There's a slight membrane left behind in that laser tape. So I usually run my nozzle across it to remove that thin membrane. And you have an etched piece of glass. It's very smooth. It's got a slight texture, like Dave mentioned. It's very fine detail. You got a little bit of depth. But as you can see here, what I like to do is give it a little more dimension. More dimension is higher perceived value, just a higher end product. So the second pass is going to remove another 30-second of glass layer. So for each pass you go across, you remove about 1/32 of glass. So the second pass, you can see, you start to see a little bit of a burning effect on the film, and that's a sign that you're getting depth because the abrasive is working in the glass, but also the mask has got a slight little burn effect. It's not affecting the mask. That mask is going to hold up just fine. Just gives you a color indicator of what you may have missed when you sand carved. So the last effect, you rinse it off with the air gun. If you're going to do any color filling, you leave the mask on. And when the paint dries, then you would remove the mask. Peels off really amazing, as you can see here in the video. I use a lot of the analogy of like peeling an orange. It's very clean. Very smooth glass behind it, no residue. Those of you that have worked with laser tape over the years may have had residue issues. This one is a residue-free film. And it comes off super easy and big chunks, like a big laser peel, or an orange peel, rather. So Here I'm using my thumb to remove the stencil. It's very light tack, so it comes off really easy. Now you gotta make sure you have a clean hand if you do that method. You know, abrasive will scratch the glass, so if your fingernails have any sand or abrasive in it, you could scratch it. So be careful if you're gonna remove it the way I did in the video. The other method is to remove the mask from the machine and be a little more careful. Have a better angle than what I had inside the machine. Here I polished it with glass cleaner afterwards, and there's no scratches. Beautiful piece, nice carved whiskey glass, and it's just gonna look better when you get a beverage in there. So very easy project. So we're gonna move on to the mug. The mug's a little bit more advanced. You have it's not just glass layers you're removing. You're removing a coating on the mug, which is porcelain. It could be some type of coating. It could be a powder coated product. So it's gonna take a little bit more time in the sand carving machine. So as you can see with my nozzle speed, in this case, I'm moving the nozzle slower. So I'm removing the coating all in one pass. Behind that layer, you see a primer. That white primer is what's giving you that good white effect in your sand carved image. That's the area you want to stop, typically. You hit that white primer. It's a beautiful contrast. I leave it the way it is. No need to color, fill, or put any varnish or any kind of coat in there to protect that primer. That's designed to last for a lifetime, the way it is. No staining, no issues. If you do happen to get through that white primer and hit that beige ceramic material, it's more bumpy, it's like a tan color, then you probably need to color fill it with an oil-based enamel, or you could just fill it in with a varnish. So here I'm removing the stencil. Again, very easy to peel. Doesn't leave a residue behind, comes off in big pieces. And you can just see how awesome it looks. Very easy project to do. So I like to use the air gun a lot before I remove the mask. So that way you don't have any residue or any abrasive on your fingers or on your part that may scratch. So the air gun is a key ingredient to a good sand carving machine. So last step is just polishing it up with your glass cleaner. You got a good clean mug to put some coffee into, and there's no dust, no abrasive anywhere to be found. So it's a beautiful piece, easy to do. You can do any cylinder object the same way, whether you're doing polar camels, whether you're doing coffee mugs, whiskey glasses. It's all the same technique. Just where do we get the mask to apply to in your laser?
All right, Darin, thank you so much. That is outstanding. I love the depth that you can get into it, especially into that ceramic, because lasers just cannot do that. We've tried many years to try to produce depth into the surface of ceramic and glass, and it just never looks the same. So combining these two technologies together really do provide a beautiful finished result. Moving forward to the next step here is another project called Halftone Processing. Halftone Processing is the process of applying the same orange laser mask, in this case to a black plate, and then converting that black and white image or any black and white photographic image to a halftone pattern, an actual digital black and white dot pattern that is coarse enough to accept the sand carving process. And so you not only get a photograph onto the surface of a hardened material like a glass plate or granite or marble, you have depth into it as well, which is great more for your, headstones. It's better for, materials that are going to last longer, because laser engraving is just a very, very light surface etching. It's a little more detailed on the laser when you etch it onto the surface, but it in no way can produce the amount of depth that, of course, the sand carving technology can. So I'm going to move forward here, and I'm going to show you not only just the process of applying the tape and stuff, but how to create the graphic to process this material. And so first thing, you're going to want to start out with a good quality photograph. That's never going to be a problem, or you want to look higher grade quality. And we're going to use CorelDraw right now, and we're going to set this photograph up to be engraved onto a 6x6 piece of granite. And so the first thing we're going to want to do in CorelDraw is we're going to want to crop out the graphic to do that. And this is just a little flow through that's going to actually show you how to basically create a graphic in CorelDraw by cropping it down to the size that we want. And then now we're going to want to go ahead and just make more design. Of course, you know, what you see on the screen is what you're going to get. And so we're going to add a vignette to this. And so I'm going to go to Effects, Creative, and then I'm going to hit Vignette. Vignette is basically going to add kind of a radius gray mark or gray oval around it. And you can identify black, white, color, ellipse, circle, square, depending on what effect that you want. We can adjust the offset and fade until we get the visible look that we want to see in this case. And so what I'm doing is just controlling the offset up and down until I get the effect that I like to see or want to see for the finished result. And so I've got a nice effect right here. And the reason it does have a black background is because when the finished result is going to be inverted or turned to negative, so that black will turn white and it won't be etched away. So we'll start with a black. Now we're going to convert this object to a black and white mode. And so there are, we need to convert it to black and white in order for this to work, because the sandcarver is going to actually take, and the laser is going to engrave away the black and not the white. And so I'm going to convert it to a 1-bit black and white. I'm going to turn it to a halftone, and then we're going to actually identify how many screen dots there are actually on the screen. So in this case, I'm going to do 45 degrees, 65 dots per inch, which is about the maximum that we can do with the sandcarver. And then when you zoom in onto the object here, you'll actually see the individual dots of what this process is doing. It's applying basically a line or a dot screen pattern so that the black dots will then be etched away and the white dots will not, in this case. We will then, of course, because the image is going to be going onto a black surface, if I were to etch that away, it would look negative if we were to etch it like this. So the last step we're going to do here is we're going to invert that final image or turn it to a negative. So I'm going to go to Effects again, Transform, and Invert Colors, so that now I have a negative looking image on the screen since it's going to be black, since it's going on a black surface of the material. So now I have the file set up here. I'm going to center it to my outline to match the size of tile. I've already got a file over here ready to go, which has got the text that I've already added here, which is I brought in a clip art of a few paw marks, added some text and some time, and then now we're going to go ahead and kind of position it and orient it onto it. The red outline is purely a reference to the size of tile. There's not going to be any cutting or anything done on this. So once we have everything positioned and ready to go, we're then going to kind of create an outline and basically get a radius around here. So what I'm doing here now is just kind of creating an oval so that I can fix this text to path so it's not just straight along the top. So I've kind of generalized an oval, fit text to path, and so I can radius around that, and then I'll delete that oval. So that oval basically gives me the reference orientation of where that graphic goes. Now I need to break it apart so that I can delete that original oval. There we go. So that was the process of taking a photograph, converting it to a dot pattern, applying text to path, applying text to the graphic, and now we're going to go ahead and send that to the laser system itself by selecting the hit print, going to the Trotec laser driver, and then printing that to the laser system itself. I have presets for the Blazer Orange laser mask already in my setup here, but we will also post the settings which will show those settings as well. And actually the previous seminar that we had actually posted those settings. I'm also going to make sure that the image is set for black and white mode when we engrave it, and then we're going to print it to the laser system. We're going to open up Job Control, and then we're going to just drag that image into the Job Control software. And now the system is ready to go. I have red skipped. Now we're going to take a piece of granite, in this case, a hardened granite can produce no depth with the laser. It is not possible. It's too hard of a material. So something like a grave marker, something like this is really the only solution for this. And so we're going to go ahead and add the Blazer orange laser mask. Same process that we did on the mugs and that we've done in other processes on previous videos. We're going to trim it off here. And then we're going to remove the film, just like we did before, making sure there's very few or no air bubbles underneath. And then we're going to go to the laser and we're going to run that file that we sent over earlier. So we're focusing onto the surface of the material, starting the laser system. And instead of etching on a radius or anything like that, we are literally etching through the Blazer orange laser mask, and we are etching slightly into the granite itself. Now, as I said before, we cannot produce depth into granite. You can lightly etch away the surface, which gives us contrast, but there's no discernible depth into the surface of it. So this process goes through the mask, and then it engraves. After we've engraved through the mask, we now have a perfect template or mask for the sandcarver. So here's a nice close-up shot that shows you all the little dots that will basically allow the sand material or substrate to kind of punch through this mask and then allow us to actually produce that depth into a material like granite that just can't be done any other way. Now, if you're not comfortable with CorelDraw, there is a lot of steps I just covered. I do know IKONICS Imaging also sells an aftermarket add-on called Halfwiz. It is a simple, easy software to install. You load the file and it will kind of do the halftoning dot patterning that I just kind of showed you in CorelDraw. Now, CorelDraw, if you already have it, yeah, it is a lot more steps, but if you want more of a simplified process, the Halfwiz is a nice software to do that, and I can let Darin Jones kind of explain a little bit of it. I've not used it as much, but he swears by it and says it works great. So now we're going to go ahead and shoot back over to Darin again. Oh, wait, one more slide here. Just the parameter settings for engraving this. Because the settings are a little lighter than, say, the glass and ceramic, I have kind of posted them for our four most common machines here so that you can kind of get a baseline for the Blazer orange laser mask when doing a photograph. So we're going to go ahead now and switch to Darin Jones, and he can finish up this process and show you the engraving process of halftoning and explain the Halfwiz software.
All right, thanks again, Laser Dave. Dr. Feinberg here for you. As Dave mentioned, yeah, we developed a program with Corel many, many years ago. It's called Halfwiz. It's a free download off our website nowadays, and it works really well with any Corel version, Suite 11 or newer. And it allows you to do halftones in like seconds. Very quick and easy to use. I'd encourage you to try it out. And also, the only thing is it's 8" by 10" maximum. So if you're doing larger halftones, you'll have to use the old traditional method. So without further ado, we'll cover the halftones more in detail on the etching. As Dave really mentioned, was when you do halftones with the laser, it's a light edge. It's not, the item's going to be going outside, which most monuments are, right? It's going to be susceptible to rain and wind and dust and sand blowing out everywhere. So you need a good engraved piece outdoors. And that's what sand carving gives you. When you sand carve into any stone, like this granite piece, you're going to get depth. So I'm blasting at 30 psi, which is enough depth on a halftone, because I can't go very deep because the dots are very small. The deepest line is wide, just like everything else we do. So, but with that depth, I'm giving it more warranty and a longer lasting image outdoors, because the erosion, everything affecting outside, it's not going to lose your image as quickly. I've run into a lot of customers over the years where they lost their image, whether it's horizontal or vertical, and they come to me and say, how do I fix it? Well, sand carving is the way to fix it. You get a longer warranty, you get offered to your customers. Generally 30 years or more is what I've been told from monument customers. So it's a good method, especially for outdoor halftones. So with any halftones, the best method for sand carving is the cornrow method or the lawnmower method. So when you mow your lawn, you kind of do it in rows. And when you cover that area, you don't go back. That's the same thing that applies here. So you just run your nozzle across, go about a 1/4 inch higher, run it across again. and so forth. The thing about halftones, you got a big area to carve all at once. So the further you are away with the nozzle, the bigger the sand beam is going to be on the piece. So if you need to speed up your production, just move your nozzle further away, your beam of sand is going to enlarge quite a bit. So as you can see in the removal method, I use a razor blade. I didn't use my hands because there's little dots, little pieces of film to pick away. So the best method I find is with glass cleaner or a shaving type, foam or whatever, and then a really good clean razor blade. And you just kind of run it at a 30-degree angle to remove all that film, and it comes off super easy, and it polishes it at the same time, right? So it's a big time saver. In this experiment, I used the air gun just to dry it out so I can present it quicker to you guys. You can let it air dry, obviously, but just for the effect, I use my air gun. So it's a quick sandblast, and I got a good depth. That piece is going to last outdoors for decades instead of years. So it's a good time, good warranty to offer your customer, especially for something like a memorial, right? You want that thing to last for many years so your ancestors can appreciate it. So sand carving and halftones is definitely the way to go.
All right. Thank you, Darin. That is outstanding, and that is that is a great point. I mean, with the laser technology, we just don't have the ability, especially on materials like granite, to produce that depth into it. And so many people want to do photographs on granite, and it does a great job on granite with the laser system. However, to produce that depth that can handle the outdoor environment and salt sprays and UV, as well as acid rains and stuff like that, the sand carving is definitely a better method and is going to give you many, many more years. I have been told by customers that did granite and place it outside that they only see, 3, 4, 5 years before it's truly faded, because the laser technology just doesn't produce enough depth onto those hard materials like granite. Marble we can a little better, but the sand carving definitely can extend that out 10 times as long as a laser technology. So moving forward here into the next process, this is the last one that I have here, which kind of concludes most of everything you can do with the two collaborative technologies, and that is cutting and weeding. Most of the time, I don't recommend weeding because it's usually a very tedious process. However, there are times to where rather than letting that laser go back and forth over that graphic and waiting, 10, 12, 15 minutes for the engraving to do on a larger piece, that it can be done much, much quicker using kind of the best of both worlds. And so I'm going to showcase the process of doing both processes, using the laser to engrave away all the intricate detail so that you don't have to pick out the individual, and then the larger area where it would normally take 3 to 4 times as long to engrave it away, I will then just grab it and peel that up. So in this case, I have a file designed in 2 different colors. The red outline won't be done. It's just a reference to the size of the plaque in this case. I have a black object will then be engraved, as we kind of did on the mug and the glass before. And then I have a blue outline, which will be a kiss cut, where the laser is actually going to cut through the surface of the Blazer Orange laser mask, but not into the glass itself. So the process is the same on the application. We're going to go ahead and apply and this is primarily used on much larger products. And so if you're doing larger plate glasses and you want to do a much larger sand carve over a much larger area, I don't want to spend the time to have the laser sit there and etch all that away. So we're going to go ahead and apply the Blazer Orange laser mask. And then we're going to take the file, and in this case, I'm going to convert it to 2 different colors, black for engrave and blue for cut. And so when I've tuned the laser system to go through, just like we did before, through the material into engraving. So I'm just lightly engraving through and then engraving into the glass just slightly. Then the blue cut line is then going through, and this is not time lapse. This is the actual cut speed of the laser system as it's cutting that line. So as you can see, the time that it would take to engrave all that away, where I had to time lapse the previous engraving process, the cutting process is very fast. Literally only taking seconds to complete this entire image and cut all those intricate details out. And like I say, this is not time lapse. This is actual speed of the laser cutting this outline process out. Once it is finished, and we now have our finished result, we then just take a pair of tweezers and get in underneath that one spot. In this case, it's one, or I've got 2 single pulls. And so I don't have lots of individual details, which is not recommended. I would engrave those details away. And then I just give it a yank. And when I yank that away, as you can see, kind of the stretchy nature of the Blazer Orange laser mask, it comes right off. And there's a second little circle on the inside, and we have now finished that result. So I was able to engrave the detail away and then peel up the cutout area at a much faster rate, and I could put another piece or part into the laser system and have it being cut out 1, 2, or I could do a whole tray of these at the same time. So this is an additional process, especially when you're doing larger individual graphics that's not too much detail and it don't have too many individual components, where you can use the laser to kiss and cut across the actual material and then weed that up. And then the areas that tend to have a lot of center points or like letters and stuff like that, I will still engrave that. So it gives me the best of both worlds of using the engraving process for the complex areas and then the cutting process for the large areas. And so I've got a much faster finished result from the laser system. Here are some power settings, again, for the cutting aspect. The engraving settings that I gave you earlier, these are the actual cutting marking settings for a 60, 80, and 120 watt for our Speedy 100, 300, 360, and 400. So now I'm going to take and, again, step this over to Darin Jones again, and he can explain the finished process of sand carving this piece.
Dave, you got a Speedy laser there for sure. Just wanted to mention on this video, I'm going to show the weeding, the deep carving capability with sand carving, and I'm going to show some couple treats, the 2-stage carving as well as doming. We've done those in other videos in the past, but we're going to show you a little bit of that sand carving technique, which is exclusive. So without further ado, let's start this video and I'll run through everything live like we do. So here are the pieces that Dave did use with the Speedy. And I'm going to show you those different techniques here with our Crystal Blast Elite. Here I'm using the side door to add my product because it's a bigger piece than the mugs or the halftone earlier. My pressure, I go a little bit higher. 4 mil resist, I could blast 40 to 50 PSI. So I'm going to blast a little bit higher PSI because I'm going to do a little bit carving. I'm going to go depth. I don't want to run over it 4 times like I did on the mug earlier. I want to go over it just once or twice. So here, I'm just using that abrasive, higher pressure to penetrate, get more carving done in a few passes. The film can really start to darken at that point, which is, again, is fine. It's not going to burn off. It's designed to be a resist. So it's going to stay put. Here's my little doming technique. And what I do here is I move my nozzle around the outside perimeter of the circle, small little circles, and then you slowly work your way to the middle. So you're just doing circles the whole time. And that creates a dome effect. So it makes the sunflower, in this case, look 3-dimensional, and it looks really neat. I can also do cones. If you do a cone, like you do a pine cone or something, or a cone like for on the road, what you do then is start in the middle and then work your way to the outside. So doming or coning you can easily do with sand carving. It's a really neat thing to offer to your customer. So here we are. I'm going to do the weeding at this point because I went depth on the outline and I'm doing a 2-stage. So my depth is going to be the next step. But what I'm doing is I'm just weeding out with a razor blade. Comes off really easy and clean, which is important because if you do a light shade on the glass, you want to make sure there's no residue or dust on that glass. So you get a nice either gray look or a white look, depending on what you want your effect to be. So in this case, I'm going to do the same PSI, 40 PSI, and I'll run my nozzle around once, and that creates a white image, okay? But my outline that I carved is more white because it was carved deeper. So you get a deeper you carve in the glass, the more white it becomes. So that's how you can see the white veins in a leaf or the white outline in the sunflower is because it's carved deeper. Now, if you want just a gray or a light shade instead of a white sunflower, you can just blast either further away with your nozzle or you can blast at a lower PSI. And those are things I'd like to encourage you to practice with your sand carving system. So here we are. I'm just going to do the remaining of the removal. I have a little tip here shown with tape. That takes out the inside of your A's and E's a lot more efficiently. I don't use the glass cleaner with the razor blade in case there's problems with the blade. Might be a little used or broken up, so I don't want to take the chance of scratching my crystal or glass. So I just use the tape to remove my counters. So it comes off really easy, and then I can do my polish at the end. No scratches because I used the air gun previously to remove the dust. I didn't use a razor blade that may have been old or scratched or broken. So it's a nice clean piece. And what I like to do with these is light them up in an LED base that makes it really shine. So when that light gets into the cavity, it really shines. As you can see here, the dome effect in the center of the sunflower is very white. That's because there's more light in that cavity. And the veins are more white because it's deeper and the light shade on the background. So phenomenal piece. That's considered a two-stage with doming, exclusive to sand carving, nice, smooth, detailed image. So great thing to do, great thing to learn.
All right. Well, thank you, Darin. That is outstanding looking technology. So next, we're going to go ahead and answer some of your questions. That's the remaining portion of the actual seminar. I thank you so much for watching that. So we're going to go ahead and come live with Darin here side by side. Hey, Darin, how are you?
Hey.
And answer your questions. So cool stuff you have there. I was just looking at the one that I have here. You sent me one. It's some pretty cool stuff. It's really neat.
Yeah.
All right.
We didn't charge, by the way, too. No charge.
What's that?
We didn't charge you this time.
We didn't charge? Yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and move forward with our questions here. How long did the laser take to make the glass stencil? I'm thinking you meant on the tumbler glass because that's the only one we did. The actual process time on that one was about 1.5 minutes. So it really doesn't take that much time. You can also, of course, use one of my laser hacks where you can put like a tennis ball between two glasses and run them both at the same time and ultimately drop that time in half because the laser process is taking virtually the same amount of strokes for doing one product as it is two products. So the time that it would take to do that is very, very quick. Figure, depending on the size of the graphic, but that small like medallion that we did on the tumbler glass that you saw in the first part of this seminar was done in about 1.5 minutes. It was a minute and a half, 1:45 seconds in that range on a speedy 360 80-watt laser system. Can you please show or explain wrapping a glass with a curve such as a wine glass? I think she means wrapping it. Maybe this is a good one for you, Darin, since you do a lot of the wrapping process for the Blazer Orange laser mask.
Yeah, actually, I came somewhat prepared. I have a lot of Blazer Orange applied pieces in the background. So I'm going to show this one because I think Andrea is referring to how the film conforms on the curve. Okay, so here I have a crystal decanter, and the way Blazer Orange works is it's a 4mm material with a carrier sheet applied. That carrier sheet is the backbone. We use that in our coating process, and it's also on there when you do, lamination. You have a carrier to protect the film. However, when you work on the curved surfaces, that carrier sheet does not conform to a curve very well. It's 2mm thick. It's very hard. It's not pliable by any means. So what you would do with Blazer Orange to get it to conform easier on a curve is remove the carrier, like I did in this example. And so here's the film, very stretchable. I consider it like a balloon, okay, because it's very stretchable. If I stretch it and apply it, okay, I'm doing this backwards in a camera, so I know it's a little complicated, but if you stretch it, you remove any kind of bubbles, any wrinkles. So it's very stretchable material and very easy. So I can apply, if I had this on a Smart Flex tool or somewhere more easier than right in front of a camera, I could show you the full effect. But I just encourage you to practice stretching and pulling, and you're going to notice that it goes on very tight and smooth. And that's on every, like a blue wine glass, or if you're doing, I did this decanter earlier as well, so you can see how smooth that is on there. No bubbles, no wrinkles. It literally took me about 5 seconds to apply the film. It was the right jig to apply your substrate on. So yeah, very easy. And I encourage you to try that out.
That's on a note to that, Darin. I've had a lot of our customers contact me and say this stuff is great for not sand carving, but just putting it on with the laser on a curved surface like that, and then paint filling it. So you laser engrave it away, and then you want to add paint to it later after the laser's etched into the surface of your material, and it gives you that kind of seamless film so that you can paint fill it and then peel that mask off as well. So it doesn't have to be used for just carving. That technique and stretchiness is ideal for using the laser and then paint filling as well.
That's correct. Yeah, this film is phenomenal for both etching only or for carving techniques. So the stretchability is like nobody else has on the market. We make a green film that when you stretch it, it actually retracts back to the original state, so it doesn't work very well after you laser engrave it, because it's going to retract and distort your image. This tape is going to conform and hold. I'd put an image on your, if I put an image on here, I can let it sit for weeks, and it's going to be the same image. It's not distorted. So it doesn't retract, and again, it stretches. There's not another laser tape on the market that I know of that stretches like this one. So it's very easy.
Okay, next question. What's the difference between halftone sandblasting and laser directly onto the black granite? We kind of explained that a little bit differently. I mean, you can directly engrave onto something like a granite, and the laser do hold a little bit more detail. The drawback on something like granite, as I said, the depth, we cannot produce any depth, and that image especially is going to be exposed to an outdoor type scenario where there's acid rain and there's UV problems and stuff like that. Will begin the lasering process directly onto the granite will fade very quickly. You're only going to get a few years out of it if it's going to be in an outdoor process. Where sand carving, as Darin said in his presentation, can what did you say, Darin, was like 30 years is what you can typically warranty that graphic for?
Yeah, and this is from monument builders that I work with. It's not myself just making up a number. They tell me 30 plus years. I know some guys get funny and say a lifetime, but they're not around to warranty that. Obviously, just their son and daughter's gonna have to deal with that. But seriously, yeah, it does create a deeper etch, and you got more. Think of it like extra layers protecting. So once a layer gets blown out or eroded, sand carving's got extra layers in there to protect the image. So it's like having 4 layers of material on something versus 1 layer. It's got protection. But also to add to that, if I may, the sandblasting, the deeper you go, the more white the image becomes. So a lot of my customers, they carve deeper, and so they don't need to color fill it. Some will actually use a different abrasive to get it more white as well. So there's no need for paint in some cases when you sand carve to get it like a highlight white kind of look. So yeah, I think between those two, I think that's where sand carving kind of shines.
Yeah, that's a great thing too. And the other drawback with laser engraving, at least granite, is that we have a difficult time achieving a bright white look. We typically have to wipe a paint down into it or something like that, because you tend to get a kind of a grainy looking graphic that is on the very, very surface. There's no discernible depth. So they each have their advantages. If it's going to be indoors and you need really high detail, and you don't want to spend there is a lot more processing time to create the mask and then create the image and then sand carve it. So it really needs to be done in those scenarios where that is needed. Your details also not as sharp as if you can engrave it directly, but there are definite clear advantages to both processes.
And there's 2 more processes here as well. When you sand carve halftones, you're unlimited real estate. You can do a large panel by applying your mask on site and sandblasting it right then, instead of taking the piece back to your shop. The other advantage is with sandblasting is the time factor. I mentioned a little bit in the video, I was only 4 to 6 inches away. My beam of sand is about maybe a 1/4 inch. If I move my nozzle about a foot away and blast it at a higher PSI, my beam of sand would have been well over 1.5 inches. So you can just look at the time, the further you are away. A lot of my monument guys, they're like 2 or 3 feet away. They can blast a full 8 foot by 4 foot panel in, minutes. So
perfect. All right, what's next question? What are the settings for the kiss cut? I did have a slide that was right after. If you want to go back to it, I don't have it on the screen here now, but it actually posted the settings up for the kiss cut. If you want to refer back to that slide, and this will be a recorded seminar so that you can access it at any time, or the link that you have been provided for this one, you can access it immediately, even prior to being posted publicly. But all those settings are posted there. If you do ever have any questions, or if your laser wattage is different than the ones I posted, just let us know and we'll give you a guideline starting setting for laser settings for this material. Would the halftone process through Corel work with any image as long as the image is of high quality? Yeah, I can't see why not. It depends on the material. I mean, you've had more experience with this, Darin. Maybe it better that you explain this one.
Yeah, the higher the quality, the better. 300 DPI is what I recommend to start with. Some people go a little higher, but that creates more memory on your file, which is overkill. So 300 DPI, and halftone it down to like a 55 or lower number, like 45, somewhere in that range is a good dot size on stone. But yeah, would it work through Corel? Yeah, the Halfwiz program that we have available, it's a great method to try out initially. You don't need to be a graphic artist to learn how to do this. Just get Corel Halfwiz, and you're going to notice you won't need to know all this high intricacies of graphics. So I encourage you to try that. And I think that answers the question, I believe.
All right, what's the next question? What effects does the ceramic have on the engraving without sandblasting process? Ceramic does not work well with lasers. It's a very, very hard outer coating, and it's typically a glazed coating with a color pigment in it. There are some brands that I have found that we can kind of pop through that outer cap and see some contrast. But in most cases, in my experience, trying to laser engrave ceramic type products and pop through that cap or produce any contrast is very difficult to do. You can etch it. It is noticeable. It's more of just a light frosted effect. Sometimes you can rub paint down into the engraving, but that is why this is an ideal scenario where the laser orange laser mask and the sand carving can truly pop through that outer cap of the ceramic, producing that contrast and that bright white effect. You just are not going to be able to see that or achieve that effect with trying to engrave it, no matter what setting or process you use on the laser alone. So that's why this is a good collaborative process to do with the ceramic materials.
And I think to add on to that, Laser Dave, some of the colors are different from others, like polar camels. Each color has a little bit different coating thickness. Some take longer than others. Same thing applies to ceramic. I've found customers that do green or red ceramic tend to sand carve. Any other color, laser engraving works phenomenal. But yeah, if it's giving you a challenge in your laser, then you can implement it into your sand carving and laser method. And like we said, do it all.
Right.
The color under the rainbow.
Yeah, and what I've found also with ceramic is if you're not sure, try it. Pick up some. Sometimes I've been pleasantly surprised. It worked great. I've even seen depth into some ceramics, but knowing where it came from and how it was processed or made will kind of depend on how it's going to respond. But 9 times out of 10, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to really get any depth or contrast with the laser alone, on ceramic at least. Okay, it's great. Thank you. How long did the detailed halftone take to engrave on the laser system? I was running this on a speedy 400, 120 watts. So I was able to run it pretty quickly. And I was also running it at a lower resolution. I mean, I was only running it at 333 DPI because this is just a black and white dot pattern. So the finished engraving took me, it was about 5 or 6 minutes in that range to do one at a time. If I were to do an array of 4 or 5 in a row, I could probably get the per piece time down to 1 or 2 minutes a piece because the laser head's going back and forth over all of them at once. But one at a time, 5 or 6 minutes on a 6x6 graphic like this in order to get that kind of detail into it. And the settings were posted right after that image to give you the kind of parameters for what I used at that point.
I think that on that too, David, you can leave a slight membrane in the film instead of penetrating all the way through the material, because the carbide abrasive is aggressive enough to get through a half mil probably of blazer orange.
Yeah,
So,
well, I mean, in my case, I'm running at 100% speed anyway, so it wouldn't have made any difference on the time because the mask is so narrow or so thin. It really it's not a limit to the power. So having to run faster. If you got a low wattage laser, that could be beneficial, but most lasers have treat the mask like it's not even there. It's an easy process. This is one for you, Dr. Fine Grit.
Yeah, what grit was I using? I use silicon carbide 180 mesh. That's why I get the nickname Dr. Fine Grit, because I use fine grit in most of my projects, whether it's halftones or deep carving. And that's a good medium. Carbide is going to create the flashlight effect on your stone or glass, so you can see where your abrasive is etching at all times. So it's really good for a beginner because you can trace your outline. You can also know you're blasting at all times, so you're not having to go back and retrace your steps. And carbide's going to resharpen, never dull. And when you get dull abrasive, it sticks to everything. So carbide breaks instead of dulls. So it falls back into your abrasive hopper and recycling over and over again. So you get a really good detailed image with carbide. And I use the 180 size. You can use a 220 as well, or 240. The higher the number, the finer the detail.
Okay, perfect. Do you have a recommended source for ceramic mugs that will work well with the laser sand carving process? That would be needed for additional treatment after the sand carving. Since you guys were the one that provided this at IKONICS, maybe you know where you guys got them, because I didn't provide them for this project, and so usually the cheap ones is usually the ones you guys use. I think just so let us know where you guys got them or your sources.
And that's the beauty of sand carving, as well as any substrate will work, whether it's a Dollar Tree material or it's a product from JDS Industries or Mark and Associates or discountmugs.com. There's a number of companies that provide product, and you get the same end result with sand carving. So yeah, those are kind of the companies that I go to for mugs. Again, they're Mark and Associates, JDS Industries, discountmugs.com. And can't forget Dollar Tree. Good way to get into the business, right? So yeah, those are kind of what I recommend. Those kind of companies. I know there's a lot of them out there, like Pure One Imports, but I think they're going out of business. There's any ceramic or porcelain mug will be fine.
Now, if you just want it for lasers, I know JDS sells actual ceramic designed for lasers to engrave in for that. But that's the only place I know if it's just for the lasering process, to be certain it's going to produce the effect you want with the laser. Okay. We have any other...
Some of the mugs out there are painted mugs. They're not coated with ceramic.
Oh, the glaze? Yeah.
They're just painted, so they're easy to remove. Like Walmart mugs. Painted.
Yeah, that make it easy. All right. Any other questions that we have here? Perfect. Well, thank you so much for attending, everyone. This will be posted online later. If you have any questions from the laser side, let us at Trotec know, and Dr. Feingrid, any last words here?
Well, I had a blast, as always. I appreciate having you working with me again today, Laser Dave. I think Laser Dave and Dr. Feingrid's a good combo.
Winning combo, yeah.
Hopefully at some point we'll be able to get together again at trade shows and seminars. And I just want to leave it with this, blast with confidence out there. It's a fun process. It's profitable. And call with questions. Call Trotec with laser questions. Call IKONICS with sand carving questions. And that's going to help grow your business.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye for now.